We now have Roanna Carlton-Taylor with us. She's from the organization Resisting Hate. Roanna, thank you very much for joining us on the Breakfast Show.
Oh, good morning. Hiya.
Good morning. We were talking about racism in British schools. I don't know whether you were able to listen to any of the points that we mentioned. They were derived from the Huffington Post article on the subject by Mike Cole, who we were just talking to a minute ago. How damaging, in your view, is racism to our society?
I think it's a major problem, and it's a problem that's only getting worse. I think it's been exacerbated massively by social media, where it's becoming almost acceptable, desanitized, to express these extremist views online. And I think we are in danger of, if we don't start educating children in the right environment, in the school environment, we are in danger of letting those children be educated and radicalized beyond that by the internet.
Mm-hmm. What can be done to stop it?
I think it's twofold in my book. I think we need to bring education about race and religious issues into schools. But I don't think it should be just done as a negative thing. I don't think it should be done with classrooms of sitting down and telling children just that racism's wrong. I think we need to look at the positives as well, start educating children about the value of other cultures and other faiths, so they can actually start to learn for themselves why it's wrong. And I think by doing that, what I would like to see is more school trips to churches, synagogues, mosques, getting children to understand the way that other cultures perceive the world. And by doing that, they'll start to develop empathy and respect for them. So I think the education shouldn't be just about hammering to home why racism is wrong. It's about explaining to children why racism is wrong and letting them understand it for themselves.
Do you think that greater responsibility has to be exercised by certain quarters in the media? You're talking about educating children. Should we be educating the media to be more responsible in how they portray people?
I totally agree that we should be, yes. I think, if I'm honest, there are some extremely ridiculous people in the media at the moment getting airtime that just isn't warranted. I'm thinking people like Tommy Robinson, Katie Hopkins. These are people who, in my view, are hate preachers. They are expressing views that are so completely against the public norm that they are in danger of letting children believe that these views are acceptable, and they're not.
Mm-hmm. About stereotypes and stigmas, how can they be removed?
It comes down to education, removing stigmas. The reason stigmas exist is down to ignorance. People don't understand other cultures, therefore they fear them. What I believe in is putting out positive messages about other cultures so people start to understand them, and once the ignorance is dissipated, then that's when the understanding and the respect can begin.
Do you think racism is something that is always going to be a part of society? It really can't be rid of. We're always going to be looking down on the other, so to speak.
I think divisions in society in general are always going to be there, and it isn't just racism. There's the gender issues, there's the sexuality issues, there's even age issues. I mean, we're always going to have these divisions in our society. But I think what we can do is move them further and further away from the mainstream. What we almost need to do is switch it around so we actually start to stigmatise the racist. So it becomes, in a very similar way to the way that smoking became socially unacceptable, it becomes socially unacceptable to express racist views.
What measures does Resisting Hate take in trying to improve racism? I mean, what I mean is that what efforts is it making in trying to reduce racism in our society?
I think we take a very twofold approach to it. We take a very direct approach. For example, when we find racist behaviours on the internet, we do look to get those accounts closed down to minimise their audience. We will go to the police and the media with extreme examples. So that's the one side, which is fighting the hate. The second side for us, which is equally important, is putting those positive messages out there. I mean, for example, when we had some of the atrocities over in America, that the mainstream media would not publicise that there were Muslims on the street fighting against ISIS, making these very, very positive statements, that wasn't covered by the mainstream media very much at all. So we see it as our role to get that information out there, to break down some of these barriers of misunderstanding that the far right press are putting out there.
And tell me more about the organization that you represent, Resisting Hate. How was it founded? What kind of things does it get up to?
Well, we were founded as a very organic group. We grew together by very like-minded people coming together on the internet. We'd all done quite a lot of activist work separately, but by banding together, we were able to get a greater deal of numbers, a much wider reach on social media, which is our primary presence, the social media platforms. And we were able to reach a much wider audience than we would have done as individuals. We have got a lot of contacts now. We've got contacts with other anti-hate groups. We've got media contacts. We've got police contacts. And we are now starting to be recognised as a group that will take on these haters and challenge them.
What kind of initiatives have you taken up?
A lot of it is to do with...
Specifically,
a lot of it is to do with getting accounts closed down on social media. It is, like I say, it's about closing them down. We were responsible for reporting Katie Hopkins to the police as well. We pursued that through with... A lot of it is quite retrospective work as well. We're retroactive. We get things sent to us from the public as well. So to give you a very specific example, we received some extremely nasty child pornography by a member of the public who didn't know how to deal with it. So we took that on, took it through the right channels, passed it to the police and got the perpetrators held responsible for doing it. So sometimes it is what comes our way that the public passes. Sometimes it's our members going out there and looking for the behaviours that we do not feel are acceptable in our society.
Yeah, I spoke, it just occurred to me, I spoke to Michael regarding this, about the importance of education, and you're alluding to the same factor, that's important to educate people about racism and about hate in general as well. But do you think punitive measures should also be taken, and they also have a role to play? Punishment, I'm talking about.
Yes, I understand. I think, yes, there is a role for it, but what we need to be careful of is the demographic that we're trying to educate. The mentality of children, and we've all been there, is that if you tell them something is wrong, it becomes the forbidden and the more interesting. So what we don't want to do is push our young people into the attitude that it is rebellious to become racist.
Right.
So I'm much more in favour of going down the route, like I say, of educating as to why it's wrong and opening their minds to other cultures. That said, I do believe that racist behaviour, particularly if it's directed towards another individual, cannot be tolerated. And yes, we do need to take measures to say this is not acceptable, and that should include some level of punishment.
At Resisting Hate, what is most worrying for you? Which aspect of hate is most worrying? Is it racism, or is it some other aspect in your society that you're quite concerned about?
I think we go through waves of what we're seeing. At the moment, it's very, very much Islamophobia.
Right.
That's been a real concern with us, and that's where we're getting most of the hate. Probably second to that is anti-Semitism. We see an awful lot of anti-Jewish hatred. Probably I would say, if I'm honest, both of those are more prevalent than racism. Right. Though in both cases, again, we are seeing them as a bit of veneer for being racist and making prejudicial comments about somebody based on the way they look rather than the base of their beliefs.
And so, is there what measures are you taking in this respect?
Again, we're trying to educate the public. I mean, our aim is to get the positive messages out there. We want to show people that other cultures are not the enemy, that these people are as valid members of our society as anybody else is, and to destigmatise some of the things we see in the far-right press. I mean, a lot of the times we're looking at information that's spread a great deal on things like Facebook and Twitter, and it's absolutely wrong. It's incorrect factually. but it's believed by people because it's shared by so many. So again, it's combating some of the myths and trying to get the truth out there.
Okay. Right. If people want to know more about your organization, how can they get further information?
We have a website, which is www.resistinghate.org.
Right.
And we also have, like I say, a presence on Twitter, a presence on Facebook, a presence on Instagram. So they're very welcome to contact us by any of those channels. And particularly if anybody is interested in joining with us to help us combat hate, we're always very interested to speak to people who will further our agenda of keeping the world a better place.
Okay. So do you also receive calls from victims? Can they also call you and contact you?
Well, they're very welcome to, but we're not a victim support group.
Right.
But what we do have is great contacts with other groups who are victim support groups. So we have not got the training or the resources to provide support directly, but certainly if somebody came to us, we would know the right people to say, these are the people who will give you that level of support.
Right. So, but you would certainly welcome calls from those people who want to support you and to join you.
We would welcome calls from anybody, and like I say, something that we're not within our remit to help with, we will turn back on. Yeah.
So you help both the victims in passing them on to other organisations that can assist them, and you'll welcome those who want to assist you in your efforts. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Very much so.
Thank you very much for joining us, Roanna.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.